Welcome back, mamas. Y'all, I have an experience to share with you today. Anyone who is a people pleaser, or if you just struggle with lack of identity and you're an empath, especially, this episode is going to be for you. It's going to serve you well. I am really excited to share it with you. So let's get to it. Hey, mama. Welcome to Prioritize with Purpose. Do you wish you had more time in your day and to feel like you've accomplished something at the end of each day? Do you find yourself up at night, doubting yourself, wondering if you've done enough, but also if you'll ever have time for you again? Do you wake up with big plans only to feel exhausted, out of control, and a little like Cinderella when your to-do list just seems to grow and your day gets thrown off track again? I'm Danielle. I too was a mom of littles running around with endless to-do lists. I too felt behind and guilty, wishing I could find balance, get clarity, and be more present in the moment with my kids. I kept telling myself I didn't have time. Schedules must just not be for me, and that I was too tired to figure it all out. I felt so alone until I made a decision to dig deep and get clear about what I wanted and why. In this podcast, we embrace where we are, but we don't stay there. I'll guide you with transformational tips. You'll learn mindset shifts and be challenged to take back control of your days so you get the most important things done and can be a more present mama who feels like yourself again. So grab the kid as a snack and get your laundry, because I know you're multitasking, and let's get into what I like to call aligned flow. Okay, mama. So I have got something really important to talk to you about today because it reminded me, my youngest reminded me of this last week. End of last week, we were coming home from cheer practice, I believe, is one of the practice I'm taking them to or from. And it was my oldest, my youngest, and my two girls and I were in the car, which is where like the best conversations happen, right? You're like all closed up in there. And so reminded me of you guys because my youngest says, she asked just both of us, like me and my other daughter, she said, do you guys ever feel like when someone else is hurting or they're hurt or they're really sad or anything, do you ever feel just really bad for them? Like just always feeling really bad for them? And my oldest daughter immediately was like, well, yeah, but I mean, I don't let it really affect me or something to that effect, right? Like something to that effect, she said. And I was like, I was like, first of all, that was such a profound question that my youngest answered. And then it was so just like my oldest to respond the way that she did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to talk about this on the podcast because we've been talking about what it is to be a good mom and what that looks like and how we're always like second guessing ourselves and all of these things that we are feeling like guilty for. And I just thought this really played into that well. I'm going to start with a quote. Vienna Farone says, empathy and compassion can be powerfully connective and healing. They can also get in the way of us keeping boundaries and letting what needs to go, go. Knowing where the line is can literally be the difference between healing and suffering. So, you guys, what I always worry about my youngest because she is so empathetic, right? And so I want my daughters to be empathetic. I am very empathetic. I guess I'm a lot of times what people would call an empath, right? And we can be empathetic, right? But still keep our boundaries. And knowing where that line is the difference or can be the difference between healing and suffering because we can get so caught up in another person's feelings or what another person wants or make it all about someone else and forget what is important to us or completely forget our priorities or what is important to us and our families sometimes as mothers. This is why I wanted to talk about this, but I just thought that my youngest made this point where she at 10 years old is recognizing, and I think it was, like I said, I think it was on the way home from cheer because she was recognizing that her concern for another little girl at the practice was actually keeping her from getting what she needed to do done at the practice, right? And so she, was worried about this other little girl, and she realized that it caused her to not be able to focus and to not be able to learn the routine that we were learning. And she was like, I think this is at least what I'm thinking, right? That this is what happened. This spurred a whole conversation between us. And what my oldest daughter, said is true. Like she realizes it. She feels bad for the person or whatnot, but she doesn't let it take her eye off the ball, so to speak, or to let it take her off track, right? She doesn't let it derail her from what she needs to get done. Now, I'm not saying that this is always the case, right? Like, we don't look at other people who are hurting. Like, this little girl didn't hurt herself at the practice. This was an ongoing thing. Like, Michaela just got caught up in it in the moment, and then recognized on the way home how it had affected her and knocked her off her course and what she needed to get done. And she was recognizing that. And my oldest was just basically like, she's not the same. Like, both of my children are very like kind and compassionate, but my youngest is just, this is something I worry about for her. And I was so happy that she asked the question, because it really did show me that she was recognizing that this is something that could be a detriment to her. And if you go down this path of always caring about what other people think, or always worrying about what is more important or what is important to others at the expense of yourself, how it can wind up causing us suffering. Right. And as mothers, we spend a lot of our time worrying and caring for others, children, other people, what they want, their needs. Could be our spouse, could be, our parents, it could be our friends, it could just be, things that we're involved with, maybe things that we're volunteering for, could be work, if you work outside of the home, that you forget about yourself. Right. And so I think this is going to be like a two-parter, because I really want to hit this home and talk about boundaries, but I felt like I needed to talk about the recognition and just that, that line of that empathy. We need to have it, right? Like, I'm not saying to be selfish. There is a fine line there. I'm not talking about being selfish or, not putting someone's needs ahead of your own, because I do advocate for that very much, so that you do want to put others' needs above your own in certain circumstances. But there comes a time where there is that fine line of, how do we make that judgment? And what are we as moms feeling guilty for? Is it something that's valid that we're feeling guilty for? Or are we self sacrificing? Are we people pleasing? Are we sacrificing our wants, our needs for the needs of someone else in a way that is detrimental to us or our families, right? There is a fine line. And I wanted to read something else. And it says, this is from Eileen Anglin, a quote from her. It says, when you engage in people pleasing, you are out of integrity with yourself, your goals, your dreams, and your life's mission. So think about that. When you engage in people pleasing, you are out of integrity with yourself, your goals, your dreams, and your life's mission. And when we don't take the time to figure out what our dreams, our goals, and our life's mission are, that's what we tend to do a lot of times, because we are people pleasing. That's kind of just like this routine that we fall into almost. We are used to taking care of everyone else, right? And so we want other people to like us, or we want to be helpful to everyone else. But a lot of times, we're suffering in silence, and we're sitting there unhappy, and we're wondering why, right? We don't know exactly what we want. And that is part of the problem. Like, we actually need to get clear on that, because when we're clear on that, then we can set up our priorities. We can know what is important to us. We cannot people please so that we aren't out of integrity with ourselves. Because when we're out of integrity with ourselves, it becomes a place where we are unhappy. We're not in that aligned flow that I always talk about, right? It's not necessarily about balancing all of the things in an equal place. I hate that word balance, right? I like to think of it as aligned flow because it is about figuring out what's important to you and why, and then operating your days in such a way that make those priorities a priority, right? It makes what's important to you a priority and that you don't do other things at the expense of what's important to you and your family. And so this is where boundaries come into effect. And like I said, I'm going to really dive deep on Thursday into boundaries, but I just wanted to kind of talk today about that people pleasing and that empathetic, because us as empaths, we can really get into this trap of people pleasing. Or if you've always been a people pleaser, like there's a lot of people that is their MO, right? Like that is how they operate. That is their default. They're pleasing everyone else at the expense of themselves. And a lot of times they may realize it, but they may not. And then they just may be resentful. They are acting out of resentment and they're tending to, almost like a lot of times people pleasers are very passive aggressive. So if you are a people pleaser, it might be something that is harder to kind of catch yourself in. But for those of us who may have fallen into that because we don't have our priorities in line, we don't have our goals or our mission or what's important to us, we haven't defined that yet. That is a whole different ball game. And that's where I found myself, was in that place where I feel like I was saying yes to all of the things because I was grasping at like people liking me. I was grasping at wanting to feel wanted in some way, shape, or form. I thought that maybe doing these things would make me happy, right? But I wasn't taking the time to figure out what was important to me and what was going to make me happy. And people pleasing definitely did not do it, right? And those of you who are people pleasers, like inherently, you guys probably know this for sure, that you are not happy a lot of the time because you spend all of your time pleasing others at your own expense. But I find like that I fell into this trap when I was a young mother because of just not knowing what my priorities were and where they lie, and being that empathetic type of person, but to a fault, right? Like taking it to a fault where I was letting the empathetic piece of me rule versus knowing what myself, my family, what we needed, what our priorities were, and just kind of losing myself in all of that. Right. Because, a lot of times I feel like maybe this happened to me more so than maybe some others. And I think it happens to all moms, but a mom who has been in the workforce and then decides to stay at home with their children and who has really like defined themselves kind of by their work up into this point, then we can get ourselves into this like hole where we completely lose our identity. And that's where I lived. And I want to read a quote by John Lindgate that says, "You can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time." So we're never going to please everyone, right? All the time. Like it's just not going to happen. But what happens is if we don't have ourselves prioritized, if we don't have our families prioritized, if we don't even know what's important to us anymore because we haven't taken the time to get still and get clear and figure that out, then we are going to wind up unhappy because we are going to be trying to please others because we don't even know how to please ourselves, really, right? And that's just what we do. We take care of other people, especially as moms, right? We're taking care of these little humans, we're taking care of everyone else, but we are forgetting to take care of ourselves. And I saw this quote by Richie Norton that said, "Selfishness at the expense of others is bad. Self care for the betterment of others is good." So selfishness, if you are acting out of selfishness, right? Like you're just like, I want to do this for me, and it's at the expense of someone else, right? You're doing it at the expense of someone else. That is bad, right? Like that is bad. But self-care for the betterment of others is good. And so we need to take care of ourselves. We need to, I talked about this a lot about being a good mom and this mom guilt and the things that we have. We need to take the time for ourselves. We need to take the time to get clear on what we want and why, to get clear on what boundaries we need to set and why. When it is about the betterment of others, which is others doesn't just, it's about our whole family, right? Like it's about the betterment of our kids. It's about taking that time for yourself, taking the time to get clear is going to be for the betterment of you. Absolutely. But it's not at the expense of others, right? Like we can't think of setting boundaries and setting or taking time to do things that are going to make us healthier in our minds, right? And make our minds healthier, make us happier. We can't think of that as at the detriment of others, at the expense of others, right? That is actually for the betterment of others because we are going to be able to parent from a better place when we know what we want, when we are taken care of. Again, I am not saying that we go and just do all of this self-care stuff at the expense of others. No, I am not saying that our priorities should be all about ourselves either. And I know if you're listening to this, that's not what it's about, right? Like you want what you want for yourself. Absolutely. You want your identity back. Most, at least that's what I know what I wanted most, right? Like I wanted to know how to get me back. And then I also wanted like to do something for myself, but it was to benefit my family, right? And ultimately, it was about making my family better
And others better.
and so when it is for the betterment of others, it's good, right? Self care is good. And it's good always to take care of yourself unless it's at someone else's expense. And we can't think of it like, oh, well, the kids don't want me to go, so it is at their expense. No, they're going to get over it. It's going to be okay because you're going to be fueling yourself and you're going to come back and they're going to get a lot of lessons from that, right? Like they're going to see that mommy does take care of herself. They're going to see that she does come back and she's happier. They're going to, even if they don't see it right away, they will see it. And even if they're not okay with it right away, they will be okay with it. And so I hope that this hit home with you a little bit today. I hope that you can kind of see that line where we are possible people pleasers. We are super empathetic, and how it can all of a sudden cross a line where it winds up being at our detriment. Right. So I'm going to talk about boundaries on Thursday. I really want to talk to you about setting some for yourself. And I think the homework I gave you last week was to do something for yourself. So if you haven't done that homework from last week, I want to challenge you to do it, right? To take that thing for yourself and go and do it. You may have thought about the thing, but not actually done it yet. So go and try to do it before Thursday, right? That gives you like 2 days if you're listening to this on Tuesday, because I drop another episode about boundaries on Thursday. And I hope you stay tuned for that. I would love to see you also in our Facebook group. If you aren't a part of our Facebook community, please go join the group. If you aren't a part of the newsletter, also, please sign up for the newsletter. You can find both of those things on my website, prioritizewithpurpose.com. Or if you're on Facebook and looking for the group, it is at facebook.com/groups/prioritized mama. I would love to see you there. And if Facebook groups are not for you, just go to the website, prioritizewithpurpose.com, and sign up for the Prioritized Mama newsletter so that you can get like all the insider things that I have to offer there. And you can just reply back and let me know what you're doing for yourself this week. I would love to hear from you. Okay, till Thursday, y'all.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, Mama. If something spoke to you, would you take 30 seconds to share this with a mom who may need some encouragement in her day? It lights me up to know this hit home with you. So please leave a quick review of the show and check the notes if you want to reach out to me. I'll meet you right back here next week. Keep smiling, y'all.